Hey everybody, our party just spent their second session in the Netherdeep and we're going to talk about what happened, so let's dig in. Let's talk about what went well. I added the rival party into the Netherdeep and I added a Petrified Dermot into area N12 and I feel like it went really well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. What could have been better? This is kind of a hard one for me. I feel like there was a little bit too much combat in the Netherdeep. My party had especially towards the end, I got the vibe that they were ready to be done with combat, so we skipped over a battle, and we'll talk about that more as well. So let's talk about what actually happened during our session. If you remember, our party has been in the living memory in area N5, so they've explored the house, they've found the names that they needed, and the ghosts have arisen. As the ghosts arrive, my party rolls for initiative, and they spend about a round and a half fighting the ghosts before they realize that maybe they have the names of these ghosts, or the descriptors of the ghosts and how they smell and look and all that thing could be useful. So they start poring over their notes from last session. It's a little bit of a disservice to have a break in between the last session where they found everything and this session where they're fighting, but they were able to find what the information that they needed, and they started calling to the ghosts by name, which helped to ease the ghosts, and they were able to put them to rest, which was pretty nice. They had a quick conversation with them, just like it's laid out in the book, and then the vision ends, and they're brought back into Area N5 in the Netherdeep, where the secret door to Area N5A opens, and they head that direction. I think this is their second fragment, so they kind of understand what's going on. Dmitri just swims up and touches it, and fragment goes into Dmitri's soul. From there, they swim down the winding corridor and head down into Area N11, which is the next chunk of the Netherdeep, and things here are a little bit different. So they head in there. I have the current pull them out of the little corridor, so they've got a current going on in here. Luckily for my party, they all have means to see in the dark, whether it's magical or magic items or whatnot, so they didn't have to turn on any light sources, which meant the light devourer in this room just kind of ignored them and swam above them about 50 feet or so. Once they got in there, they decided that they were going to head towards Area N10 because it was closer, so they swam that direction, and as they get in there, Jimmy, with the highest passive perception of the party members who were there, sees the slithering bloodfin and chasing the swarm of starfish on the far end of the chamber, and they're like, let's turn around and go back. So they head back the other direction and head into Area N12, where again, Jimmy with the highest passive perception saw the two death embraces as they were kind of sneaking in, and my party decided, let's take a short rest before we go fight all these battles. We can pick which battle we want, but let's take a short rest first. So Trixie casts Liamon's tiny hut, and they're able to take a quick short rest, and during this rest, I had Jimmy make a perception check, and rolled really well, and out of the corner of his eye, Jimmy was able to see a statue of a humanoid that was about the same size as Dmitri, who's their gnome fighter. As they finish up their short rest, Iris goes invisible, swims over to the statue, and immediately notices that this is Dermot, one of their friends in the rival party. Not this session, but the session before. The rivals sent a note to my party just saying, hey, the Allegiance has us on important business. We were going to go into the rift with you, but we can't anymore. So they've been down here exploring the rift. My party's assuming they're going to have to fight them or something at some point. So we've been playing off that a little bit, and I feel like this added a good complexity to the Netherdeep and added a different twist, what they've been dealing with so far. They have a conversation in the tiny hut, back and forth, like, are they going to try and stuff him in the statue into the bag of holding? He doesn't need to breathe, but it also might push the limits of the bag of holding and break, and everything chaos will ensue. So they decide probably against that, and back and forth some other options, and they decide that they first need to fight death embraces so that they can figure out what they need to do from there. So roll initiative, have a good, hard-fought battle, and my party ends up taking out the death embraces. They also know the death embraces are what caused the petrification because they fought one in Kael'Maro, and I think it was Trixie's companion, Rusty, was the one that got petrified there. They know that that's the problem, so they take them out, take out the death embraces, and then they are able to deal with Dermot. So they decide, after much more conversation, Trixie's going to cast Tenser's floating disc, which is just barely able to pick up Dermot. We googled the weight of a goblin. When you're petrified, you're about 10 times heavier. So it was really close on the cusp there, and I just decided, you know what? Yes, they can use Tenser's floating disc. She's going to have to cast it every hour, but they can use that to haul Dmitri's statue around as they go. So they did all that, headed into Area N13 with a little statue Dermot in tow, where they were very careful to avoid all the ruidium spikes here. There's also some ruidium statues. Iris decides to check out the statues, see if she can figure out who they are, and because they've had so many interactions and visions and whatever else with Alyxian, it's pretty easy for her to determine that, yes, these are depictions of Alyxian, and as she's kind of looking at this, the three scuttling serpent maws attack, and they get a surprise round. One huge battle leads into another battle. This one then my party handled pretty well. They fought these 4 in Kael'Maro as well, and they were able to handle them without too much issue. After the fight's over, my party decides that, you know what, I feel like we're getting close to the center or the heart of whatever this dungeon is. I'm not sure we're ready to go. Let's see if we can't find the rivals. So they head back into area N12 and decide, well, let's take a long rest before we go face the slithering bloodfin. They kind of had gotten into the Netherdeep around noon, so it made sense to me that this is about the right time that they could take a long rest. They had another vision from the Apotheon's lore table, which they had one at the short rest as well. Every time they take one of the two or someone goes unconscious or something like that, we have a vision. And during this long rest, they also leveled up, which was fun and exciting, I think, for each of my party members. So they spent some time leveling up, rolling hit die and that kind of thing, picking their next abilities. And then they woke up. I had them roll a Ruidium corruption save, and they all failed. So everybody took a level of exhaustion, which isn't a big deal. The first level of exhaustion, which is what they're all on, is just disadvantage on ability checks. So they've all got that. They've got fancy new rashes all over the place. From there, they headed back into the Slithering Bloodfin room in N10. They all rolled really well on their stealth checks because they wanted to sneak, and I felt like they were kind of exhausted with the battles. The two that they already had kind of slogged on for a little bit. They were able to manage to go underneath the Slithering Bloodfin, who was busy chasing the swarm of Sorrowfish. No problem. They got into the next area, which is the N16, and I got a huge reaction from my party on this because pull up the map, there is this giant red circle, which is a mini scale Ruidus. They see all of this. They see the sharks. They see the moon. Lots of discussion about what they're going to do. The sharks just kind of doing their own thing. They don't do anything unless they're provoked. Eventually, Iris decides she's going to go up and cast a spell on one of the sharks. So she goes up, goes to cast her spell. Eyes open all over the moon. Boom! At the same time, the sharks start heading towards her. The secret room opens up to their left, and they have to make wisdom saves. And poor Trixie was the only one that failed. So she's got a curse on her now. It's called the Agent of Doom, which is from the Curse of the Ruidus table. She'll have to remember that. Keep close to her allies. This is also the first time that really they'd seen the more sinister side of Alyxian, because once you get into this area in the Netherdeep, his tone changes a little bit. He's not super excited to talk to them. He's kind of vengeful. They got all of that. Things are changing. They're kind of second-guessing themselves about Alyxian, which is good. And we ended our session. We'll pick up from there next time, which should be a lot of fun. That is pretty much it. Thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the video. I do appreciate it. Huge shout out to my patrons. We'll catch you in the next one.